So hey everyone, welcome back. And in today's session, we'll be having a look on shell scripting, and we'll be looking on to like what shell scripting is, type of shells. Try to make some like shell scripts inside our Ubuntu, and then after that, we'll be moving on to declaring some system defined and global variables. Now, then we'll be looking like how to take input from user for variables and like how to declare arrays, reading input by default variables. Then we'll be moving on to some if statement, switch case, for and while loop, some logical operators we'll be seeing along with like arithmetic operators, reading a file's content, and we'll be having a look on functions as well, like also like declaring local variables. And so yeah, let's get started with the hands-on part. So before hands-on, let's have a look on like what basically this shell scripting is, right? So this shell scripting is kind of a program to write a series of commands for the shell to execute, or simply we can say that shell scripting is like writing a bunch of commands and executing them from shell itself. So I am talking about this shell, right? So what this shell means? So a shell is a computer program that represents a command line interface which allow you to control your computer using commands, right? Like with a keyboard instead of the GUI. GUI is like you most of you are like familiar with that. The GUI is the visual graphic you see on your screen that basically you basically interact with using your mouse, keyboard, and the touch screen combo, right? So then this script came into our mind. So this script is basically a program or a sequence of instructions that is interpreted or carried out by another program. Okay, so moving on to the screen. So this is my Ubuntu VM, and now let's have a look on to the type of shells into our system. So depending on different OS, like I am having Ubuntu, you are having Mac OS or some another distro of Linux, right? So depending on different OS, there are different type of shells. So to check the type of shells offered by your operating system, just type cat etc shells. So these are the shells that basically my operating system provide, right? So you can see in the output we have the sh, we have bash, rbash, dash, and tmux, etc., right? So you can also check out the path of your shell using which command. So you can type which, and let's say I want to check the path of bash. So it is basically showing the path of bash shell, right? Also, like if I do it like tmux, it is showing me the path of tmux. So similarly, you can see the path of any shell into your system. Now moving ahead, what this bash basically means. So this bash is basically stand for like the Borin again shell, right? And then we have dash, we have rbash. So rbash is like if bash is started with the name rbash. So this option is basically like supplied at invocation, right? So the shell becomes restricted. So the R in bash is basically for the restriction part, and a restricted shell is used to set up an environment like more controlled than the standard shell. Now let's make our first shell script. So in your terminal, just you have to simply type touch hello dot sh. So what we have done here is I have just created a simple file, a script file named as hello.sh, and you can also see the file has been created into my system. And now what you need to do is you just need to open this file using any editor. If you're doing in your system, I am using in my cases like this Veeam, and you can use the VS Code or something like that, but in my case I'm using Vim. And yeah, but before starting with the shell scripts, always specify the path of your shell. Like, so it is not like necessary, but it is always a good practice to specify the path of your shell. And what I mean to say that is, you just need to simply open it into any editor, right? So first of all, you just need to specify the path of, let's say I'm using bash, so I will specify the path of my uh, bash shell within my system, right? So the format to provide the path of the shell is using this hashtag exclamation space and provide the path. Let's say it's bin and bash, right? Now so we can also define some comments using the hash, and this is a simple shell script. So in this way we can define the comments in the shell script. And also, now let's try to print hello world using our shell script. So in order to print hello, we use echo in our terminal, and we are using the same command inside our shell script. As I already told, this shell script is a combo of multiple commands that you basically run into a system. So what we are doing is we are gathering all of them in a single place and executing that single file in order to run all those commands at once or simultaneously. So we will use echo, then our message will be here, hello world. We'll save the file, and now let's try to run our script file using the terminal. So what we need to do is we basically need to execute this file. Okay, it says permission denied. Let's check if we have the execute permissions for this file or not. So okay, you can see here that we don't have the execute permission for our hello.sh file. So in order to provide this executable permissions to a file, what we do is basically use the chmod command with executable query, and we'll use the file name, that is hello.sh. Now if I do ll, you can see now we have this X here. It means our file is executable now. You can also see the color has been changed from this gray to green. Okay, now let's try to run our script file. So you can see it is printing hello world. So this was just a simple and very basic shell script. Now let's move on to some uh, variables part, like system defined variables. So these system defined variables will always be in capital letters, like we have bash, we have home, and so these variables will always be called after this dollar sign. So let me show you. So again open this hello.sh file, and now what we will do is let's echo our shell is, I'm using this dollar sign because now I'm using a system defined variable. So this bash is a system defined variable that will give bash shell name. Okay, and we can similarly also see the bash version. Again, using a system defined variable, bash version. And we can also see our home directory. So our home, now let's save it and again try to execute it. You can see, so you can see the path of our shell script, basically the bash path, and also the version of our shell, and the home directory path. So these were some system defined variables that are basically defined by system itself, and we can simply use them using this dollar sign inside our shell script. Now let's try to declare some global variables. So these global variables can be called globally, right? So let's try to define some global variables within this shell script. Okay, now let's say we have name equals to Ubuntu, and what we can do is echo name is name. Similarly, we can put integer value inside a variable using this. Let's say value equals to 20.04, and we can also use echo let's save our file and try to execute it again. So you can see we can see the name of a variable. So this is basically, here we are calling that name variable. Similarly, we are calling here the value variable, and you can see the output of those variables. It is saying name is Ubuntu and the version is 20.04. Right, now let's try to take some input from the user for these variables. So again, opening that file. Now let's say echo enter names. So we will be using this read uh, command in order to take input from the user for these variables. And let's say I use uh, n1 for input 1, and then n2 for input 2, n3 for input 3, and now printing these inputs, echo names, and one we have, then we have the n2, and then we have the n3. Sounds good. Now let's save the file and again execute it. So it is asking for names, and let's say if I give A, B and C, so I have provided three kind of inputs from my side, and you can see the output. It says the names are A, B, C, right? So this is how you can take the input from the user for your variables using this shell script. And what you can do is you can also take a silent input in this, and in the same line. So for taking input in the same line, we basically use this -p, and for taking silent input, like silent input means data will not be visible while inserting. So this will be preferred if you are like providing your password or some credential information, so you will use this -s for the same. And again, if we will open our file, so what we can do is we can comment these things out. And now what we can do is we'll be reading the data in the same line for this username variable, and also let's take a silent input using -s. So read -s along with p. In order to take the input in the same line, we'll be using password, and let's assume it as pass, echo for printing a blank line, and we can echo username. Our username is uname. Similarly, echo this password, pass. Okay, let's try to execute it again. So it's asking for username and the password, and you can see. So this time we have used the -s flag, and you can see while inserting the input in this uh, parameter here for the password, you can see the password is not visible for the user, right? So this is very useful if you want to provide some credentials and you don't want to display them while inserting the values. So this is really good, right? So you can use -s flag for the same, and in the output you can see the username is Ubuntu as I have provided here, and the password is I'm secure. Now let's move on to the arrays part basically. So We can also define arrays within the shell script. So let's see how we can do that. So again, opening that file, and let's comment out these things. Moving on to declaring some arrays. So we'll be using -a flag for arrays, and in order to print the values for these arrays, we'll be using the symbol @ right? So let's have a look how we can do that. So firstly, we'll be taking input from the user. Go enter name, then we can use this read command in order to take input from the user. -a is for array, so we can take the data in the form of an array, like we'll be showing you while executing the command. And let's echo the name. So this time we'll be using this curly braces, and inside these curly braces we'll be using this name along with this symbol, so it will be printing the whole array. Now let's save this file and execute it. So it is asking for array, let's say A B C D E, and you can see I have provided the input as an array A B C D E, and the output is the same. It means the array has been created and we are able to fetch the elements from that array. Now we can also print some specific value from that array, because this time what we have done is like we have printed the whole array, that is this A B C D E, but what we can do is we can also print a specific element from this array. Let's say we can print C or E or A or anything like that. So how we can do that? We can do it something like at the place of this @ we'll be using the index number of the elements. So let's say if I want to print A and B, and saving this file again. So this time I'm also giving the same inputs, and you can see in the output I'm only getting the output as A and B, because in the script I have only provided the index of this A and B, right? So this is how you can print specific values of an array. Now you can also print index of the array using this exclamation mark. So what you need to do is you just need to use @ because we want to print the index for all the elements, and in in front of this name you just need to add an exclamation mark. Save the file, execute it. A B C D E, and here you go. You can see the index of each of the elements have been listed out here. Now if you want, let's say if you had a very big array and if you want to print the length of that array, so what you can do is you can use hashtag for that. And so how you can do that is, you can use hashtag here, and yeah, it should work, I guess. So here we have provided 5 elements as input for the array, and you can see the length of the array is 5. So this is how you can print the length of any array using this hashtag symbol inside that command. Now if you want to add some values within that array, you can also do that. So let me give you an example for that. Let's comment out these things. Okay, let's take a new example. Let's say we have a variable as OS, and we have this our favorite Ubuntu, then we have Windows, and Mac. And okay, so this is an array, the OS above one, and if you want to add a new OS inside this OS array, what we can do is we can use the index number, and we can provide this index number using this formatting. Let's say we want to insert that element at the end, so using free, and I want to insert a new OS, let's say Kali OS. No, let's try to echo this array. So you can see the array is Ubuntu, Windows, Mac, and Kali. So you can see the array has been updated, and the element named as Kali has been inserted inside that array itself. So this is how you can add values to an array. And moving further, we have, like, if you want to remove that specific value from an array, you can also do that. So what you need to do in that case is, so here you can use, let's say you want to remove Mac from this, so we'll be using the index of Mac, that will be 2, and we'll be using unset in order to remove the Mac from this array. And yeah, save it, execute it, and you can see the array has been reduced to these 2 elements, the Ubuntu and Windows only. Okay, and Now let's try to read the inputs by some default variables. So by default the data will be stored in a default variable called as reply, and let's have a look on that. Let's say echo and name wheat. We are not giving any parameters here, so the inputs will be taken by the default variable named as reply. So we'll be displaying the output using the variable echo name is, we have the default variable, and you can see, so this time we haven't provided any parameters in the read command. So here you can see I haven't provided anything like we have done earlier. Like here what we have done is we have provided these n1, n2, n3 kind of variables that will store the input from the user into these, but this time I haven't used anything like that. So by default the input from the user will be stored to a default variable. This is called as reply, right? And using this we can also print out a result, and after that we can also take the input as an argument. Like how we can do that is we can use, let's say if we want to give 3 arguments, so what we can do is we can use these 1, 2, 3 in integer, and if we executed A, B and C, okay, wait, so you have to provide these names while running the script itself. You need not to use any read function here, just comment it out, because this time we are taking the input from like as an argument while running the script, so we have to provide the arguments here itself. And yeah, you can see the name is ABC, and this is output of that echo command, this one. So in this way you can list out a lot of arguments here according to your use case. Now let's move on to our if statement. So we use basically like -ne for not equal comparison, similarly fi for telling the system that if statement ends here or not. So these are some like general commands for this if statement. So if we open this file, commenting this out and moving on to if statement. So let's try to make our if statement. Let's say we have a variable named as count equals to 10, and we want to check whether this count is equals to 1 or not. So I'll be using this format, count equal to 1. So if it is true, I'll be using then echo equal. And if what we can do is we can also check if the count is not equal to, so this hyphen n is basically used in order to specify if this count is not equals to 1, then echo as not equal, else what you can do is echo invalid. And here our statement ends, so we use 5 at the end of if statement and save it, execute it without the arguments obviously, and you can see this time we have provided the input as 10, so it says not equal. And if we use 1 here, you can see it says equal. It means the if script is working fine also. And you can also like have a look on a list of specifying operators in shell scripting by browsing them on web, because there are a lot of operators. Like we have equal, that basically can be used like hyphen eq, and we have not equal for hyphen ne. Similarly we have greater than, less than, we have less than equal to, greater than equal to. So you can have a look on those operator specifications in this shell scripting. Now let's have a look on file or folders test operators. So before executing the code, I'm going to insert in the file. So make sure that you have created files that are executable, and you have specified -e for taking the input in same line, and we'll be using -f for checking if there is a file or not, and we'll be using this -w for checking for the right permissions, right? So let's have a look on the code. Let's comment out these things. Okay, so this -e flag is basically used for taking input in same line. And let's check if this file exists or not. So for that we use hyphen e here in the if statement. So the hyphen e in the echo command and hyphen e in the if statement both plays different role, right? So these are some rules of the shell scriptings that you have to learn. We can also use hyphen f for like if this file, if this is a file or not, or if it is a directory we can use hyphen d, and if this file is empty or not. So in order to check that, we can use hyphen s for the same, right? After that, we have the then command in order to echo the file name found or not. So if this file is already existing in our system, we will say the file found. Otherwise, file not found, and at the end we'll be using 5. Execute it, and let's say if you enter the name of the file as hello, so the hello file does not exist here, right? So if I create a file as hello, let's say you can see I've created a file named as hello here, and if I again run that command and enter the name of the file as hello, you can see it says the hello found. It means it is able to recognize this hello file within our system, right? Because earlier it was saying hello not found, but after creating the hello file, it's saying that this hello is found inside the system. Now what we can do is, nextly we have the switch case statement. So let's have a look on the switch case here. Okay, so let's have a look on the switch case statement in shell scripting. So in switch case we basically choose an option. So let's print something like that. Let's print a message. Hey, choose an option printing a single blank line, and so let's say if we want to list our current files in the directory, we can choose A for that. We can choose B for listing out files in the current directory. and in order to choose the options we use -e, enter choice, read choice, and we're using this case keyword, and we're using the choice, and we have a as let's do it as current files, do it as current date, that would be good. So for date press A, for ls press B, and if you press anything apart from these two, we'll be using a asterisk, echo invalid output, and at the end we'll be using exec for the termination of the switch case statement. Let's save it, execute it, and let's say if I want to list out the files inside my system, I will be choosing B. Similarly, if I want to see the current date, I will be using A, and if I press anything apart from A and B, let's say C, so it will say the invalid output, right? So this is how the switch case works in Linux shell scripting. Now we can move for a for loop statement. So we have a lot of methods here for the for loop. So the method one could be like for I, my bad, for I in, let's say, integers, do this, echo the number is $I, and at the end we'll be using done in order to terminate the for loop. Save it, execute it, and you can see it says the number is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the loop is working in the shell script, and it is working for all the values for I in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And the method 2 could be like for I in I am Ubuntu, and yeah, so you can see it basically print all the words separately, like I am Ubuntu in 3 lines. Then we can also specify our range. For example, for I in, let's say, in a particular range, using curly braces for the range. We will be moving from 1 to 10 and with a space of 2. And if we execute it again, you can see the script is running a for loop for the numbers between 1 and 10 and skipping 2 elements between them, like starting with 1, then we have 3, 5, 7 and 9. Okay, and then we can move on to a while loop also. So let's see a while loop. Let's use a variable count as 0 and num as 10, and while this count is less than equal to the num, what we'll do is to echo numbers are count, and we'll be increasing this count by 1, and then we'll be using done. So you can see this while loop is working fine because it is printing the numbers from 0 to 10, and in our file we have specified the same thing. So we are saying this, like when the count is less than or equal to num, it means this 0 until and unless is less than or equal to 10, we have to echo the numbers of the count, and once it will be equal, it will be like more than the number, so it will terminate the while loop. After that we have the logical operators. So let's have a look on logical operators here. And so let's use an example. Let's declare a variable as a, putting it value 6, and if you have if this a is greater than 5, we are using this double AND symbol, or if this a is less than 7, what we will do is we will echo true, else echo false. And at the end we'll be using 5, running it again, oh, it says false here. You can see it means this is working fine, right? Well, it was also giving some errors here. If we have a look here, Yeah, that's fine. Moving further, yeah. Now the error has been fixed. We need to give spacing between the curly brace, the square brackets or the curly braces, and the parameters inside that. So you can see it is saying true now because the condition is met. We have the a that is greater than 5 but less than 7. That means this a is 6 here, and that is greater than 5 and less than 7. It means the condition is true, and it has printed the same thing. And we can also perform some arithmetic operations inside the shell script. You can do that by using the following commands here. Okay, now let's declare some more variables. Let's say is 20, b is 10, and what you can do is echo a plus b. Similarly, what you can do is multiplication, division, um, right? So for multiplication we can use asterisk symbol, and here you go. Save the file, run it, and you can see the output. 20 plus 10 is 30, and 20 into 10 is 200. So similarly, you can perform the other arithmetic operators also, and after that we have the functions inside the shell scripts. So let's have a look on that. So we can define functions inside the shell script using the function keyword, and we can define the function name as read, and we can do echo yeah, makes sense. And we'll be calling this function at the end. Yeah, you can see the function has been called and the output is as required, right? And yeah, this was all about the basics of shell scripting. I hope you enjoyed the session, and yeah, for now, thank you.